My story and my heartfelt work began as a result of my family having a genetic heart disease that had claimed the lives of 6 of my family members. In 2002, I received my own conclusive diagnosis that I had the disease myself. And to be really rawly truthful, it was shocking. And I was fearful, really, to be truthful.
I'm Tina Lynch.
And I'm Jody Paul.
And this is Oh Health No.
Oh Health No.
Hello, and welcome to our second episode. I love this episode so much. And then here's where I say, I love all the episodes.
I know, me too. We know you will as well. As we've started to dive into this podcast, we begin to realize that we're starting to do a little bit of a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing. We just made a list of our friends.
And they had all been through a health crisis in some capacity. I mean, there were a lot of them.
A lot. And the crazy thing is, we're just normal people.
What is normal anyway?
We're normal city folk.
Okay, that feels right.
I like the word folk. Shout out to Barack Obama. He says folk all the time. I kind of really love that. Anyway, okay, I guess our point is that we both know so many people that have either had a health crisis, know someone who has had a health crisis, and it's touched their lives in some way, or they're healthcare heroes of some sort.
Something tells me that literally everyone can say the same thing if they really stop and think about it. And that's why we're doing this.
Yes. Case in point. Okay, our next guest, Holly. So a little context, I'm a fan of context, is that I went to high school with Holly Morrell in sunny Cypress, California. It's really not sunnier than anywhere else, but I just say that all the time. Anyway, she's a tad bit older than me. She was pretty aspirational. Even then, someone you looked up to. You know, when you're younger and you're female, you look up to the women that are above you in school. Anyway. How could you not with her? She started Heartfelt, a nonprofit, in 1999. And I always knew about her work and how amazing it is, but I truly wished I knew the story behind it, her personal story, as it were. And I knew it had to be substantial. And as it turns out, it is. This is really when I wish we had Jason Kelsey to read an intro for us, right?
Well, actually, he's retired now. Maybe he can throw us a bone.
I would love that.
Holly is definitely worthy of a Jason Kelsey intro.
But for now, hopefully she can make do with us. Take it away.
Holly is a survivor and a warrior. She fights the good fight for her nonprofit every single day. Holly is the founder and executive director of Heartfelt, which is a grassroots cardiac screening effort that goes into the community and screens for heart disease. Her mission is to save more lives through early detection, education, and increased public awareness. As of 2021, Heartfelt screened a total of 55,000 adults and children, and over 1,000 lives have been saved. And I'm sure that number is probably much, much bigger now.
I'm sure. And all the while she was doing this, she was dealing with her own heart issues, which include 7 heart surgeries. Count them, 7. And while she's been written up a lot, her personal health story often takes a backseat, and we want people to hear it and learn from it. You don't know what you don't know.
Please welcome Holly Morrell. That's a great headshot.
I know. My pictures do not look that good. Holly?
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, look at you, Blondie.
Oh, love it. We were just talking about your beautiful headshot.
Oh,
Yes.
Thanks. I need to change it.
So nice to meet you.
You too. Nice to see you, Jody.
Nice to see you, too. It's been forever, and it's exciting to see you.
Aw,
As
thank
I was telling Tina how in awe I am of you, and kind of gave her the background of you. We're so honored that you came on. Seriously.
Oh, please, girls. I'm very grateful. I don't know, though, Jody, if you saw, I did this interview, Healthy Women Their piece came out this morning, and I've been teary-eyed over reading it all day. And I shared it on my Facebook, so I don't know if you saw it, but they used that same headshot. But yeah, it was a really good article. So I might be extra emotional today.
But
Yes.
you should, because it is National Heart Month, or American Heart Month, and you are the perfect person to talk to. I know some of your journey. I'm obviously studied up on you. Before this. Well, you've done so many amazing things. I mean,
your story is so incredibly inspiring, and yeah, everything I've learned about you so far, I'm just in awe of you. So we're so excited to have this conversation.
You guys, thank you. I usually preface these types of things where I don't love sharing my story. I don't love talking about myself, but the bottom line is that if it gives me an opportunity to educate and raise awareness, I'm always incredibly grateful for the opportunity. It's just that my story has so many different layers to it, and often writers or journalists will take their own approach. So part of the story is not touched at all. So this particular one that came out this morning was like all about my open heart surgery. So I was reading it, and it was not triggering in that way, but it just stirred up a lot of emotions for me. But appreciate all the kind words and the praise, but I don't know how deserving I am of it.
Oh, Piper.
I know.
I apologize for that. She hears a noise and she's very protective.
It's okay. We're all dog people, but I'm happy you guys included me because it's another opportunity to raise awareness. And your title is so awesome.
Well, if that title fits anybody, it's definitely you. I'm so sad I didn't see the story from this morning, because the good work you do is something that, some people could think, oh, she's a lady who lunches and she just does good work, but your surgeries and your own personal health journey is pretty profound. So I love that this other article talked about your story, because we want to cover everything. Clearly, it's all important. But if you could share your health story and, your open heart surgery and how impactful that was in your life, and if you could just walk us through what happened, because it's pretty shocking.
Sure. There's quite a few steps to get there, but I'll start. So I think my story and my heart work, let's call it, or my heartfelt work, began as a result of my family having a genetic heart disease that had claimed the lives of 6 of my family members. So as a family, we were very aware when we would hear these stories of these young athletes dying on the playing field, right? We would kind of have an understanding of what they were dying of, but were thoroughly confused why the general public wasn't being made aware that these were potentially preventable tragedies, right? And so I decided with my dad, who was still living at the time after having a heart transplant, that we were going to take a more proactive approach. And it was his idea. I'm going to give him the credit. He asked if I wanted to get involved with providing early detection via community-based cardiac screenings. And at the time I was training show jumping horses. I didn't even know what the hell he was talking about, but I said, sure, like I'm going to look into it. And his main motivation at that time was because he was living across the street from a local high school, and there was a young boy there during football practice, a 16-year-old kid that had full cardiac arrest and died on the playing field. And my dad could literally see the football field where he died.
Oh my God.
And my dad had already had a heart transplant. He was already beginning his patient advocacy, although the internet was still in its infancy, really. But he was also an ex-football player. So it was touching him in many ways. And he did some outreach, and he got a hold of the family, and he actually helped the family, supported the family through receiving the information which caused this young boy's death, which was the same disease that had afflicted my family and that my father had, and so on and so forth. So my dad ended up asking me when I was training the show jumping horses if I would consider doing these community-based cardiac screenings. And so I began to explore the opportunity with him, and 30 days later, we were at that same high school and we screened 500 kids, and I just never stopped. And that was in 1999.
I literally just got chills when you said that.
I want to cry.
Because that is not easy, trying to set up something like that and taking the initiative and then making it happen. It's not easy. People take it for granted.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say that I think my inexperience and being sort of naive to what the whole effort would be, going in it blindly probably served me quite well, because it was all sort of just really mind-blowing, to tell you the truth. But in any event, we saved lives that day. And so I never stopped. And so that was in 1999. And then in 2002, I received my own conclusive diagnosis that I had the disease myself. Now, up to that point, I was only considered a borderline case because obviously with so many deaths in my family and deaths of a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old cardiac arrest, and another 14-year-old, and so on and so forth, our family was continually evaluated. But I didn't receive my conclusive diagnosis, if you will, until 2002, which was almost 3 years after running my screening program. So I like to say that I entered into community service thinking I would be a good spokesperson. I just didn't realize how good of a spokesperson I was going to be. It was crazy.
I mean, and when you got your diagnosis and got that confirmation, what went through your head?
How old were you at that point when you were diagnosed?
Let's do the math, because I don't want to fudge on my age.
Well,
you don't have to say. You could just say, "Oh,
no. I'm not afraid of it." I believe I was 35.
Okay.
I'm 57 now, and it's 2024, and that was in 2002. I believe I was 35. And to be really rawly truthful right here, it was shocking, and I was fearful, really, to be truthful. I wasn't fearful of the diagnosis of the disease. I was fearful what that meant, because it was immediately recommended that I have this device implanted in my body. And I know that it sounds kind of strange, but as an adult, I never had a shot. I never broke a bone. I never had a stitch in my whole life, and so I had no point of reference for myself. Now, granted, my father had already received a transplant. A couple of my cousins already had their defibrillators implanted, and I had been doing my work for 3 years. So it wasn't like the subject matter wasn't new to me by any means, but it did have a different spin on it when it was all of a sudden me, right? And so it was sort of interesting. At that time, my doctor and the doctor that was sort of overseeing my family was the most renowned cardiologist in terms of our specific disease in the country. And so when he made the recommendation for me to get the defibrillator, I said, "Oh, guess what? I happen to be going to a scientific session in Orlando, Florida, and I'm meeting with a ton of cardiologists. Maybe I'll ask around and get different opinions." And he was like, "Holly, no, you're not going to do that." So anyway, I ended up going to the meeting. And after a couple independent meetings that we had, I asked a couple of the cardiologists that were already serving as advisors for my work, to have a cocktail or a bite to eat. And so we were discussing the situation, and they not only agreed that I needed to get this device implanted, but then they had very specific recommendations for doctors and such. So I felt I felt like I was in good hands, right? But I remained fearful. I really did. And I made all the arrangements to get the device implanted, and I was finding my peace with it. I did continue to have a little bit of anxiety leading up to that surgery date, but, I was at peace with it and ready. So when I had that first surgery, so again, I believe I was 35 years old. It was 2002, had no idea what to expect. And so I went into the surgery, enjoyed the anesthesia thoroughly. But I will tell you that as soon as I woke up from that surgery, I was in pain. And, I had no point of reference. So I didn't know if it was normal pain or what it was, but it seemed a bit extreme to me. So I remember the doctors immediately wanting to give me a chest x-ray. I'm thinking maybe a lung had collapsed or something. But when they got the x-rays back and my lungs were fine, they were like, you're good to go. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what? Like, this just doesn't feel right. And it was a dreadful night. I mean, I spent hours in the bathroom, in my hospital room, crying, thinking, how am I going to be released to go home tomorrow? And then thinking, what is wrong with you, Holly? I don't remember my cousins talking about this.
Everything you're saying is what people want to know. Here's this person who's done all this work, and yet they had fear too. How I feel is completely normal, But we also want people to know what is not normal.
Oh, well, it gets deep, let me tell you.
So if we can back up to where you were talking about how your cousins hadn't experienced that.
Yeah. So when I was dealing with the situation through that first night in the hospital and dealing with this pain and thinking, how am I going to be released tomorrow? I was reflecting on, my cousins never spoke of this type of pain. I mean, my father had a heart transplant, for God's sakes, and he was out of the hospital in 7 days, right? So I was thinking, what is wrong with me? But I mean, obviously, I knew myself well enough to know that it definitely wasn't my imagination. I certainly wasn't being over dramatic. But I didn't, again, not having that point of reference, I didn't know if that was normal surgical pain. So I just went with it, right? And by the time I got home, like typically with surgery, you usually have a post-op appointment 7 days later. But in that 7 days, I mean, I never got out of bed. I didn't do anything for myself. The pain was unbelievable. And so I knew there was something wrong. And a different cousin was staying with me, helping me at the time. And she actually drove me to that post-op appointment. I will mention that the closing of my surgery was done by a plastic surgeon. So I had back-to-back appointments. I was going to see the plastic surgeon for my follow-up and then to follow up with the cardiologist for the device implant. And I passed out at the plastic surgeon's office. The pain was just crazy. And so they sent me on to the cardiology appointment, and I was going to get, my post-op appointment, which I had no idea what that was going to be like, right? So interestingly enough, the first thing that I experienced was I went into the room, and the device that I had implanted is manufactured by Medtronic. So there was a Medtronic rep there. And I mean, no one told me anything. I had no idea what they were going to do, what she was preparing to do. They just asked me to lay down on the exam table. I don't even think the doctor was in the room quite yet. And I'm just, moving quite carefully because I'm already in pain and I don't know what they're going to do to me. So what she ended up doing later, I understand it to be an interrogation of the device. So she's preparing to do that. And I just made a very subtle statement, like, I'm not sure what you're going to do, but please understand that I'm already in pain, And she's like, oh, yeah, no, this isn't going to hurt or anything. And I think back then they actually had a device that was similar to a computer mouse or something, was placing it over my chest. And so again, in hindsight, I realized that part of that interrogation is they are controlling your heart and the speed of your heart rate and so on and so forth. So she accelerated my heart rate without telling me, and it caught me off guard. Okay. So I want to tell you, and I want to be very, very clear about this. What ended up happening was a little teardrop just came out of my eye, right? And by then the doctor had joined in the room. And he looked at me like I was crying hysterically or something and basically said, "What's wrong with you?" And I remember looking at my cousin and saying, what world are we living in that I'm a human being laying on this table and some other human being is controlling my heart without telling me, and I get a little startled by it and I'm being ridiculed? I mean, what the hell? I want to say that I coined this phrase right then and there, that I wish the doctors would not forget about the human wrapped around the device, right? Because they were all about the device and could have given a lick about me. So then to top that off, when the doctor realized that I was having some sort of physical issue, right? And then he was kind of figuring it out, and he kind of looked at my cousin and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "Well, I had to drive her here." He goes, What are you talking about?" Now, these are his words. So he looks at me and he says, "Good God, you wear jewelry that weighs more than that device. Quit being a wimp. Get on with your life."
Oh my God. I can't right now.
Yeah,
It's
like I want to cry. I want to cry. This is what.
Yes.
This is why this.
This is why we're doing this.
This is why we're doing this.
Well, I'm happy to start you off then.
No, people have no idea that this goes on, and or they feel like they don't have the right to talk about it. And like you were in excruciating pain for all that time. Nobody's listening to you, and to actually say that to you, like, get on with your life, that's appalling. Okay, I just had to say that.
How terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. To be sitting there with these people that are not validating what you're experiencing. This is insanity to me.
Yeah, like you said, you're a human being, and they were making it all about this device.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm so sorry that you went through that.
Oh my God, yes. There are no words for a situation like that. Those are the things that you just can't make up, because you're like, how could anyone ever say that to a person? And that being said, what did you say when he said that? What did you do?
I mean, I can't remember any more specifics in that moment in terms of my reaction, but I believe I was already on some pain medication, probably not anything extreme, but if you're a person that has never been medicated before, I'm sure I wasn't, all there. And plus, I've learned the hard way that, I mean, chronic pain does a lot to your brain, I mean, everything. It's like all encompassing, or not all encompassing, but it takes over everything, right? And so I don't remember my specific reaction in that moment, but I can tell you that shortly after. Now, you have to keep in mind that I'm already linked, networked, associated with many cardiologists because of my work, right? So as soon as I was able, I started looking for another doctor because I wasn't going to tolerate that. But I didn't have fight in me at that time. I did later, and I'll tell you about that. But I think I pretty much let it go, got another doctor. And then with the new doctor, I just remember saying, you got to help me. Something's not right. And his reaction was very honest, and I appreciated it. He said, I'm not sure what's going on with you. I've never seen anything like this before, but what I can tell you is I'm going to help you, which was enough for me, right? Yeah. So what that turned into was just like a crazy journey. I think I saw 11 doctors. Okay. Now, not even all cardiologists. They started sending me to psychiatrists and stuff because they just started treating me like it was in my head. And I mean, I was told by another patient advocacy group through my dad that I was a hypochondriac, that I was paranoid, like all this stuff. It was nuts. And I mean, Jody, I'm feisty, and I didn't have any fight in me because everything I had was geared to fighting that pain. And not being heard was devastating because it wasn't even that I cared that they believed me in that moment, but what that meant, right? Because if they didn't believe me, they weren't going to help me and I was going to stay in the pain, right? So that's what was devastating. So all that experience of going to all those doctors was freaking dreadful. And I started really disliking doctors, really disliking them. And so what ended up happening is I tried to live my life within that year. I tried. And to tell you the truth, my family started treating me like it was in my head too, because no doctors were validating anything. And I don't know, it was such a strange experience and like dreadfully hurtful experience, both physically and emotionally. But I did try to live my life. I was seeing a pain specialist. I was medicated till I couldn't even tell you my middle name. And since my middle name is Holly, you realize how drugged I was. I mean, it was crazy, but nothing, conquered the pain. So I ended up in a meeting and trying to do my work. And I was with a bunch of cardiologists, go figure. And I put my head down on the table and I had tears and I was like, could somebody help me? I can't keep living like this. And I remember calling my new doctor on the phone after that meeting and literally crying to him and saying these words, that sudden cardiac death sounded really good to me and that he had to get this device out of my body because I couldn't live like this anymore. So he ended up calling, I don't know why this doctor at this time, but a cardiovascular surgeon that was located here in Orange County where I live. And my brother took me to an appointment to visit him. And he said, I don't know what's wrong with you. I've never seen this before, but what I'll tell you is that I will go in via surgery and I'll see what I can figure out and try to help you. And I was like, sign me up. I'm ready to go. Right. And trust me, I mean, there's so many details. We would have to talk for 3 hours for me to give you all the details. So I'm skipping through to the most significant ones, even though a few are still significant. We just don't have time. So anyway, when I had that surgery with that doctor, the first thing when I woke up on my own, right, I was thinking, you have got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. I felt fine. I felt completely fine. And I was like, oh, this is what it was supposed to feel like. Now, this was like 11 months later.
Did they take the device out?
No. So the doctor came in and then he told me, he validated me. He said that the first doctor, so you can have it subcutaneous under the skin or subpectoral under the muscle. Well, I'm, like a young single girl or relatively young. And so I was concerned about the aesthetics. So I wanted it under the muscle and I have huge boobs. So I was like, bury that thing. You know what I mean? I don't want to see it. So the doctor never made it under the muscle. He carved a hole in my muscle, my pec major. That's your biggest muscle across your chest. And so he put the device, this is the doctor telling me this, that he had made like a buttonhole and the generator, the device was in there, like using the muscle as a buttonhole. And then it was poking out my armpit and had my pec minor against bone. So with every breath I was taking, the device was ripping my muscle.
Oh my God.
And he said to me, okay, so I took it out of the hole in your muscle. I put it deeper and more medial, to get it out of my armpit and blah, blah, blah. And then he said, I sewed it in and then I sewed up the hole in your muscle. And then he looked at me and he said, I do not know how you sat up, let alone walked on this earth for this long. And I was like, hella freaking Luda. Somebody, like I'm not insane. I'm not crazy.
Oh my God. I can't even. The minute that someone validates you, I had a doctor validate me too. And I had something where my family didn't believe me. And well, still kind of doesn't. But no, that's a
Yeah.
whole other story. But thank God you are so strong and that you found that doctor, the new one that could actually help you. So not that this is a route that everybody wants to go, but did you go back to that original doctor and say anything? I just always am so curious.
Same.
So I think that my situation was a little bit unique, right? Because a lot of folks in the cardiology world knew of me because of my work and or knew of my family story because this disease, was so dramatically affecting my family. And that doctor was aware of that. And I think, I don't know if I should say, but a television show was considering following my story. And so he was really caught up in that. And anyways, I think he was probably not behaving even to me like he would anyone else, right? Because of those reasons, his ulterior motives, whatever they were. But the reason why I'm sharing that with you is because he actually called me after the surgery. And it was clear that he had spoken to the surgeon prior to calling me. And I want to say that I was staying at my mom's. She was kind of helping me, through that recovery, which was nothing, by the way. But she was in the other room when he called. And so he starts talking to me and I let him speak for a moment. And then I said something to the effect of, it's a blessing. I don't have to hear your condescending, patronizing verbiage anymore. And I said, I want to ask you a question. And I said, do you happen to know what the Hope Diamond is? And he was like, like he had no idea what I was talking about. And I said, remember when you told me that I wore jewelry that weighed more than that device? Well, I believe the Hope Diamond might be one of the largest gemstones known to man. And I would like to shove that up your ass and see how you like wearing it from the inside out. You could hear my mom from the other room. Oh, Holly, don't talk like that. And he said something similar, oh, Holly, don't be like that. And I think I just said, bye, click. And I've never spoken to him again. I have spoke of him quite happily. And I've seen him, but I haven't spoken to him.
Oh my God, I love you so much.
I love you. I love you so much.
I cannot tell you. I love that because you did what we all want to do and what needs to be done. I mean, that should never have happened to you. He should have never talked to you that way. And he 100% should have heard that from you. Right. So God bless you.
I do want to clarify one thing. So my hostility towards him had not, well, I don't want to say nothing, but it wasn't because he had made a mistake. He's human, right? It was the way he treated me. That was why I was hostile towards him.
100%. No, I 100% knew why you did it. And, I've had situations with doctors too. I did not have something of the magnitude of, what you went through. It was different, but it had that similar sort of effect on me. And it affects your life and it affects your health and it affects also your belief in whether or not you're going to get better. And then how he treated you also affected how other people treated you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I'm sure he was talking to him before I made it in the office.
It's just people do not understand the magnitude of that and really what it does to you. And the crazy thing is you have this whole nonprofit, you're doing all this good work and so many people. And I always sit there and I think with my health thing, there are times when I'm so angry. I can't believe this happened to me. And I'm a white girl from Orange County. Can you imagine what other people in this country go through? Mm-hmm. Because I understand that there's privilege just in those things. I mean, you are intelligent, accomplished, gorgeous, and well-spoken, and all these things, and yet you're being minimized. I just can't. Sorry, I don't mean to rant, but I'm just horrified.
Okay.
No, yeah, and oh, I love your rant, Jody, always. My sentiment exactly. Like, what about the person who doesn't have the family support? I mean, you're running an organization. This is your work in the world. This is like, you know about all these things, and yet these doctors are still dismissing you
Mhm.
and treating you like, you have no idea what you're talking about, and you're making this up in your head, and it's psychosomatic, and you're a hypochondriac, and all those things. And Jody and I have both, through our personal health crisis, have been through the same thing.
Mhm.
So if that can happen to you, having all that awareness, when it happened to me, I had no idea really about any of what I was going through.
Well, may
Yeah.
I say that, I'm sorry for both of you with your challenges. And, we all have our own journeys. But I did want to make one thing or another thing really clear that, I said earlier that through that journey, I had lost a lot of faith. And by the way, I haven't even gotten to my open heart surgery.
I know. But I mean, I know that's what I was going to ask you about next, because you haven't even yet.
I know. I think we were both just like, to what you were saying, is that piece in there of being told it's all in your head. I think that's what I was trying to like. It sounds like all three of us have that in common, that we've experienced that to different degrees. So yes.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I did want to make clear, though, is that I had kind of a healthy balance, though, right? Because my personal journey and seeing all those doctors and not getting the help or the validation that I deserved and needed was horrible. But I had a lot of doctors, a lot of my doctors that were a part of my nonprofit efforts that were supporting me, that I had great appreciation for. They weren't in a position or a location or a practice of medicine where they could have helped me personally, right? But they were there to support me. So I did have a healthy balance. And even though I still continue to find it challenging through my own medical journey, I have amazing doctors in my corner for my heartfelt work. And I mean, I couldn't do it without them. And so, I just want to make sure that I am acknowledging that I recognize how blessed I am to have many, many doctors supporting my heartfelt efforts and my community service work. So cheers.
My heart hurts for you. Just hearing what you went through, though, for all that time. It's unbelievable. It really just is. And your gratitude is kind of amazing. And so what I do want to know is then that device, when you had your open heart surgery and you clearly came close to death, is the device what saved you? Is that what helped you?
No.
So this, yeah. So you had your second. So this doctor went in and they put the device in where it should have been placed, and you wake up and you're feeling like, okay, I feel fine. So take us through what happened next.
Well, again, there's so many layers. I'll fast forward, but I'll give you the
Okay.
synopsis, right? So I did really well after that second surgery. Now, I had a lot of residual issues. I had a frozen shoulder from not moving my left arm for a year and, things like that. I did some physical therapy, but I did really well. And I got back to my work and, I was happy and trying to think I was playing tennis. Yeah, I was playing tennis. I was doing really, really well. And then the manufacturer started recalling all the equipment. So at first, my generator, the device, was recalled, and I had to have that replaced. Now I made it through that surgery, and it was pretty simple. I mean, typically, I believe if my memory serves me right, when you have the device placed under the muscle, you have like it's 6 to 8 weeks or something of recovery, and you don't want to lift heavy, like kind of having like breast implants or something, I would imagine. So that recovery was fine. And then I got through that, and I think like couple years later, they recalled the wires. So at that time, the recommendations differed for each individual. Like, for example, if you use the pacemaking capabilities of your device a lot, then you needed the wires replaced right away. If you didn't, they said you could wait a while. I don't really remember exactly, but my category was that I could wait for a while. but then mine fractured.
You've got to be kidding.
So I had bad wires. Oh, Jody, this is an interesting story. Remember when Galit passed away? We had a girlfriend that we went to high school with that had died. Her name was Galit. She died of cancer. And I was involved in some fundraising efforts for the leukemia organization. Her husband was having this event or being honored. And I went to that event that night. And I remember sitting at the table and thinking, ooh, I don't feel that all through that dinner, the fractured wires in my device were accelerating my heart rate so that my heart rate was off the charts, like over 100 beats a minute for like 3 days. And
Wow.
that night was like the third day. So I came home from that event and I did an at-home check and sent it to, I even had a new doctor at this point. And I remember hopping in the shower because I was starting to get filled with anxiety.
Okay.
And I'm getting in the shower and like letting, like scene from a movie, letting the warm water hit me and just trying to like relax. And as soon as I stepped out of the shower, the phone rang. I was still in my towel, and the doctor just said, "Oh, Holly, I'm so sorry." I just went, "Oh, no, don't tell me." And so she said that the reading showed her that there was an impedance. And so I had to go into her office, and then it was determined that my wire, I don't remember. I would assume it was just one wire, but that was enough that fractured, and I had to have it fixed, replaced, whatever. But I was at risk of being shocked by my device because when the wire is broken, it hears what they call noise, and it can misinterpret that as a cardiac event and shock you. So I said, well, turn it off. And she said, well, I can't do that. You'll have to stay in the hospital. And I was like, no, I'm not staying in the hospital. She says, well, I can't turn it off then. So these are your choices. I can turn it off. You won't get shocked. You have to stay in the hospital, or I can leave it on. You can go home and stay very still. And, neither one sounded fun, but I wasn't going to stay in the hospital. So I chose to go home, which was bizarre. When I talked to her the next time, she said that device like geared up some crazy amount of time, like over 300 times, getting ready to shock me because of the noise, but I stayed still enough that it never really activated or shocked me. But anyways, then I was contemplating this surgery, knowing that now I'd already had 5 surgeries. Okay.
Oh my God.
And so this one, I believe I was aware that potentially they had run out of room for new wires, right? Because you only have so many veins in that area, I guess. I don't know, or appropriate veins. So I knew that they were going to have to do what's called a lead extraction. The wires are called leads. And just so you know, so the generator is like a little device like this that sits in, this area of your chest, and then has wires coming out through your veins that go down into your heart, and then they like fish hook into your heart, and that's what's monitoring your rhythms and there to administer shock, right? But as you can imagine, if you're running out of room and they need to do a lead extraction, think about how crazy that surgery would be, because, the vein is teeny tiny, right? The hooks in your heart, I think, aren't easy to deal with, right? So there's a lot that could go wrong. So I was thinking, okay, if it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong with me. So I want to find the best doctor. So I started calling around to my heartfelt doctors, and a couple doctors outside the state, first of all, were recommended. I think one was at the Mayo Clinic and one might have been at the Cleveland Clinic. I don't know. But they were supposed to be experts in lead extraction, right? And then there was one doctor that was recommended to me in Burbank. And the 2 out of state that were experts in lead extraction were not surgeons. They were invasive cardiologists, right? And the one in Burbank was a cardiovascular surgeon. So my theory was, okay, first of all, he's in Burbank. Let's go talk to him first, right? So I went in there and I freaking loved it. It was like a mom and pop office. They had their dogs in there. The beautiful wife that was working the front desk, and this man was so soft spoken, and he was like brutally honest. He said, Holly, I could take out your heart and your lungs, no problem, but this lead extraction is the most stressful thing I do in my practice, and it's the most dangerous. And I'm like, all right. So I said to him, I'm not going to lie. These other doctors were recommended to me, but it occurred to me they're not surgeons. So what would happen if something went wrong? And he said, well, it would cost valuable time because they'd have to call a surgical team and get you to the OR and, try to help you. And I said, okay, so then what would happen if something went wrong with you? He said, I am the surgical team and I'm already in the OR, right? So with that being said, just kind of loving his whole vibe and him being local, I felt like that was the decision that I needed to make. So I scheduled the lead extraction and had a little bit of anxiety leading up to that. Another thing that I learned is even though I had 4 surgeries that went well under my belt, that first one, that was horrific. When something like that happens, it's hard to have a level of confidence when you go into the next procedure, right? So that still was worrisome to me. So I had quite a few friends and family that went. I don't know why, but they did. Maybe they were worried. Maybe they knew something I didn't. But so I went in, and I think it's supposed to be like nothing big, like a couple hours or something. And all I know is that after that lovely anesthesia put me out again, I actually woke to that surgeon giving me a little tender kiss on the forehead and whispering to me, I'm so glad you're with us. And thinking, I'm still got my morphine drip going. And then he whispered in my ear that basically they had to do open heart surgery.
Oh, Jesus.
And, now I realize the little kiss and stuff, how sweet and tender it was, but they were also checking, like whatever it is, my brain activity to see if I was, aware or hearing, seeing, feeling, that kind of stuff. But it was still a very sweet, tender moment. But all I could think of was, I'm not ready for that. Like, pump the morphine drip. I'm going back to sleep. And so I think it was 7, 8 hours, 9 blood transfusions, a collapsed lung, all kinds of crap. Later, I woke up to they ended up having to remove the device from my left side because it was just too demolished from the 5 previous surgeries. So they cut me there, took it out, and we're going to put it in the left side. So I was cut there. But what happened is when he was doing it, a vein was severed under my clavicle and my blood pressure was dropping and I was bleeding out and dying. So he only had about 90 seconds to save my life. And so they had to do emergency open heart to save my life.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Freaking crazy.
I mean, can I just ask one question? Is there any time when all these surgeries were happening that you're saying, do I even want this device in me? Because obviously you're a very rational person and probably you believe it would save your life, and I'm sure it would, but for the love of God.
You went into the surgery thinking you're having this lead extraction and you wake up and you find out all of this. How do you cope with that? How is your mental health at this point after everything that you have been through? How are you handling that? How are you processing all of this? Or are you just like in mode of, I just have to keep going and finding the answers?
Do you still have the device in you?
So I know it sounds crazy, but there's a few more things before I get to today. So just to back up, it was a long hospital stay in the ICU. And believe me, I was flooded with love and support from friends and family. So I was super blessed. But I am single. I live alone. My body was mutilated, right? And so my cousin came in, they flew her in from Oregon to stay with me for the first week. And then my friends circulated, they did a schedule, and I was never alone in my house for the first 6 weeks. But I couldn't move, I couldn't use my arms or anything like that. And the pain was pretty crazy, like kind of like it was the first time, right? So I was on, I think I had a morphine patch on my arm, whatever. But anyway, at that time, it took me, I think, 9 months. I never got out of bed. I mean, I couldn't recover. The pain was, again, unmerciful. Now, I got up and I walked, because I didn't want to do that breathing machine. So I walked the hills and everything, and I moved. But for the most part, I was incapacitated and in horrific pain again. And then this time, the opioid thing had come to light. And so none of the doctors want to give you opioids. And I'm all, I got off them one time, I'm suffering. And it was brutal. It was another brutal recovery. And there were many times, in fact, that's why the article from this morning, Jody, got me, because I hadn't thought about it for such a long time, but it was just horrific again. And I, had a pain specialist, and it was just crazy. And there was a point in time where I really believed that I would never have any quality of life again. I mean, I just couldn't see it. Like, how was I going to go from this and having open heart surgery to, having any quality of life? Now, with that being said, I made it through it, and I came back. The pain went away, and I healed after 9-10 months. I re-entered into the world. I think my biggest thing is I was no longer allowed to play tennis, which was my love, because my device was now on my right side. And so I wasn't allowed to do any repetitive arm movement with my right arm. So obviously that would count tennis out. So that was heartbreaking, but I was happy to be alive and out of pain and be able to re-enter the world. So I was happy again, and I got back into my work, and I was at peace with the whole thing, thinking, all the worst has got to be behind me. I'd said it before that, at the risk of sounding over dramatic, I believe my life was saved so that I could spare others, and so I was good. So that was in 2012. And then in 2019, the device came out of its pocket.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So then the pain came back, because it was messing with my nerves or whatever, and it messes with your shoulder, and you can't use your arm right, and this and that. So I didn't go back to the surgeon in Burbank. I went back to the surgeon that fixed the catastrophe from the first time. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll fix this. And so he fixed it. It was another 6-8 week recovery. I was fine. I'm happy, went back to work. Everything's great. And, so just really feeling that I had made it through to the other side. And so to answer the question, it was not easy. It was not easy to go through either one of those two bad surgeries. And I was becoming a little resentful, because I felt like I was getting this device implanted in my body to protect my life. Instead, I felt like I ruined it, but I made it through all of that. And I was super appreciative of my life. I, told myself that I'm going to live the life I love. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the support that I was shown, because as Jody was talking about, or we all were talking about, there's I would imagine there's thousands of people that don't have that type of support. And I just felt so blessed. And so I remained grateful. And I had skipped over this part, but I've also been shocked by my device, and whether it saved my life or not, it's hard to tell. My heart rate was, like at 300 at the time. So I have that gratitude as well. And so, again, I have that balance of, this part is bad, this part is good. And because I also preach the technology
Mm-hmm.
every day of my life to heart patients and people that I identify through my efforts and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's just interesting.
So when it shocks you, then what happens? What do you need to do when it shocks you?
Well, I was playing tennis, and this was before my open heart surgery. So sorry, timeline's a little wacky. It was the first point of a match, and it was a long point. And I felt I didn't feel terrible. I felt a little lightheaded, a little dizzy. And so I just stood there and leaned over and, put my hands on my knees and kept my head down for a minute. And a few people were a little concerned. They're like, "Are you okay, Holly?" And I'm fine. I'm fine. Just give me a minute. And then I think when I went to stand up, it just felt like someone hit me so hard with a tennis ball, like in the chest. Well, I mean, I could only make sense of it being a tennis ball, right? And I'm thinking, well, who the hell did that? And then I'm realizing there's no tennis ball. So, come to find out, I mean, people compare being shocked by your device, like being struck by lightning or being kicked in the chest by a horse. Wow. I mean, it was scary. I'm not going to lie, it was scary. But I realized what had happened and I laid myself on the ground. And then people kind of surrounded me and I didn't know what to expect. I was like, "Don't touch me in case I get shocked again." I didn't know if it would shock them or whatever. And someone called the ambulance. And I asked the ambulance people at the time, "Do I have to go with you?" Because by the time the ambulance got there, I felt fine, and they said yes, which I learned later that you don't have to go. You can sign a release. So that was like a $5,000 trip to the hospital that was 3 blocks away. But they can't do anything. They can't interrogate the device or anything. So they kept me there for a little bit and then just let me go. It was silly, to tell you the truth. So if that ever happened to me again, I would know better what to do. But I think the protocol typically is if you get shocked once, it's done its job, right? So there's no need to go to the hospital. You just check in with your doctor and, go that route. If you're shocked multiple times, that's when there's an issue. Like your device could be malfunctioning or you could be in deep trouble and it's not helping you. But yeah, that was a very interesting experience. But the reason why I brought that up again was because, I don't know what would have happened to me. Could I have stroked out with my heart rate being 300? I didn't even know you could get up to 300. So, that was bizarre. But I do want to flash forward because now we're in 2024 and I don't remember what month it was, but last year my device came out of its pocket again. And it's currently out of its pocket.
Still?
Right now?
Are you just going to leave it out?
So this time I took it in my own hands, and I'm happy to share these details too, because this is a disservice. So I called up one of my Heartfelt doctors and I said, "Could you order a chest x-ray for me? I'm going to go in and get a chest x-ray." They didn't even know why I wanted it. And I got it. And then I compared that x-ray to my x-ray post-op in 2019 in my patient portal. And it was crazy. I posted it on my social media, but it had definitely moved. And the pain in my shoulder and my arm and all that, I know what that pain is, right? Because wherever it ended up, my body wasn't having it, right? And so this is crazy. So I first called the surgeon's office. Now, he had done 3 surgeries on me, not the open heart, but the other one, right? You know what his office said? "You need a referral." And I was like,
What?
You got to be kidding me. Like, I'm not playing this. And then I said, "Okay, I don't even need to see him. Just tell him to go in my patient portal and look at my x-rays. And I think she said something to the effect of, yeah, no, that's on you. And I went, okay, okay. Not going to be dealing with that. I think I had a few cuss words and hung up. So then I shared the x-rays with another doctor, and they made a statement like, oh, I see it rotated. And I was like, really? Rotated? Because to me, going from here to here is what I would call a migration, right? And I just couldn't believe it. And I was like, really? So I was so disappointed, so disappointed. And so I decided maybe I will see if my body will miraculously acclimate to where the device has settled, right? Because I didn't want to rush in for surgery number 8, and I'm older now, and how much more can my body take? And, it's like almost like I feel now it's not my heart that's going to kill me. It's one of these surgeries that's going to kill me. And I just don't want to do it anymore. So I really gave it some time, and it was hard because it was really painful for, like, I want to say maybe a couple months, but really painful. And then it settled down. And I mean, I did all kinds of crazy things. Like, I don't know why. I iced it multiple times a day. I tried to do some soft stretching and just give it time, time. And it settled down. And so now, however many months out, I'm okay. I mean, it's protruding out my chest like crazy. And my shoulder doesn't feel 100%, but there's no pain. And I even started playing pickleball. So what I would do is I would play 2 games, which is so hard to discipline yourself just to play 2 games. But I would find that if I played 2 games, I could play the next day. You know what I mean? And so now I'm doing pretty good, and it's unbelievable. So I think I'm okay for right now. But going back to that really heavy question, Jody, is that, the way I feel in this moment, that if I needed to have another surgery, I probably would say remove the device. I'm not doing it anymore, because I just don't want to. I would rather take my chances the other way. And I don't know what that sounds like to the world. My only concern is I would never want that to influence another patient. So I don't know, maybe I would even keep that quiet. I don't know. But other than that, I don't care what the world thinks, because I tried. I tried it your way. Didn't work out so fabulous for me. That's where I am today.
I mean, that's understandable after all you've been through. Are there other family members that have experienced anything like you have from this disease?
Just so that you know, it's called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and the acronym is HCM. And when I first started my work and learning about it, I think it was quoted that it affected about 1 out of every 500 people. It might even be closer now to 1 out of 200 people.
Oh, wow.
But still, so many people haven't heard of it. But a lot has changed since, I started in 1999. But, in terms of my family, I don't mean to sound, really dramatic, but most of the family members that had the disease have passed. So I'm still, even with all that story, I still consider I'm a lucky one, right? But my cousins that have it, well, my one cousin has been transplanted, so she doesn't have it anymore, but she's a heart transplant patient. Another cousin still has his defibrillator. We have another generation, a younger generation. There's one family member that has it, and she's being managed by a cardiologist, but no one else in the family has it. They've passed. So yeah. And my other cousin that has a device, I mean, he's had a hellish journey too, not the same as mine, but he's had situations where his malfunction and like shocked him like 17 times. Yeah, pretty bad. So I mean, it's rough. But In all fairness, both of our journeys started a long, long time ago. They've made some tremendous advancements in the technology. And, I know a lot of people that have been saved by their devices. So I'm always going to remain grateful for the therapy, right? That's what they call it. It's just, it's hard to be a tremendously positive advocate, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, what can you do?
So when you do your screenings and you find essentially you're screening for the condition you have or and just any heart condition as well, like any sort of abnormalities in people's heart function, is that true?
Close. So
Okay.
my screenings are geared to screen for the general risks of cardiac arrest.
Okay.
Heart attack and cardiac arrest are not the same thing. And there's a myriad of causes of cardiac arrest. So currently, we are utilizing the best two tools for detection for the general risk of cardiac arrest. We use the electrocardiogram or EKG, some call it an ECG, and an echocardiogram, which is cardiac ultrasound. So one is addressing the electrical activity of the heart, looking for any arrhythmia or electrical issues. And then the ultrasound is giving us a vision of the heart. So we're looking for the structural issues. So those are the best two tools for detection for the general risks of cardiac arrest. So that's what the screening is. And for example, our family's genetic heart disease is a thickening of the wall of the heart. There's some controversy if you can conclusively identify it with an EKG. Some say you can, some say you can't. I don't want to get involved, but I know that it is typically visually identified through the echocardiogram, the ultrasound, because we're actually seeing the walls of the heart and can identify and measure the thickness.
So for you, or for anybody that is in danger of going into cardiac arrest, then if that's the case, then they would have a device put in or some other therapy. Yes?
So again, there's a myriad of causes, and each of those causes, I don't know all the medical terms. They have different approaches to either management. There's not very many that you can cure or get rid of, but there are a couple. So there's devices, there's other surgical procedures, there's drug therapy, there's changes to lifestyle, there's, all sorts of options. And that's dependent upon the specific condition that they're dealing with and the individual, because obviously those conditions can affect individuals quite differently as well. I mean, for me, I never had to take any medication, where the rest of my family, all of them took medication. I never had to. I'm not symptomatic for the most part. The others are. So it's a very individual thing.
I do actually have heart disease in my family. On my dad's side, people have passed from heart attacks. And I learned when researching the difference between cardiac arrest and heart attack. And a lot of people actually don't know the difference and what can save someone's life. And I mean, I know I didn't personally. So do you mind explaining that for
Oh,
people?
sure. In very layman's and simplistic terms, if you think of it in terms of a heart attack is a plumbing issue. So there's like some sort of blockage, right? The person that's experiencing a heart attack typically stays awake. They could feel that pain down their left arm, the tightness or the pressure in their chest. They're often told to like bear down, like they're going to cough, or give them an aspirin. CPR can be super helpful, I believe. And they stay awake so they can communicate to you.
CPR works for a heart attack, but then for cardiac arrest, you need the defibrillators, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and there's always exceptions. My cousin who's been transplanted, CPR saved her life. But anyway, so a heart attack is a plumbing problem, a blockage. Cardiac arrest, on the other hand, is an electrical issue. It's an electrical problem. So once the heart goes into that deadly rhythm, you typically need access to defibrillation, which, obviously we've talked about mine being implanted in my chest, but when we're talking about the general public, we're talking about the paddle, in the hospital where they go clear, chink, so that's the one in the hospital. But defibrillators out in the public where they should be everywhere, they have the little pads that you stick on, and the machine actually talks you through the instructions to administer the defibrillation. So the window for survival is that I believe that you need to receive that defibrillation within a very short period of time, like within 8 minutes, I want to say. And the survival rate out of hospital for someone that has cardiac arrest is less than 10%. Wow. So you can obviously tell it can be more deadly, because there's lots of folks that live to tell you their story about having a heart attack.
Yeah. And it's interesting that my family members died of heart attack. But yes, I hear about people surviving heart attacks all the time.
That's why it's so terrible. I could rant about this forever, but there are organizations, national organizations, that have a lot of funding that could simply educate the public to the differences, so that people would understand that an otherwise seemingly healthy, active individual can be at risk because they're at risk for cardiac arrest, not heart attack. It's such an infuriating point, because the thing is that, like, think about it. When most people think of a heart attack, they think of an older man, overweight, smoking, drinking, stressed, and, eating horribly, right? So
my dad's side of the family.
That's what we think.
He was. They were total cliches. Like,
or diabetes, or, we hear about all those processes, but it's true. I didn't know either, like cardiac arrest.
Right. Why wouldn't it be recognized as a necessity to tell you? But, well, certainly the media and most of the world use the terms heart attack or cardiac arrest interchangeably.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I care about, the confusion in terms of the words. It's that because just knowing the difference could save thousands of lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I spend my life screening kids, and parents don't always get that their kids should be screened because they're thinking of a heart attack. It's so crazy frustrating. It's such a disservice. And then there are so many people that I come across through my work, and sadly, even families that have lost a loved one, and even a child, that they get the coroner's report and there's no conclusive information in there. And then I help them get a more detailed report, which they make them pay for, which is disgusting in the first place. But then you get that, and I send it to a cardiologist, and they say, oh yeah, they had, HCM, or they had this, or they had that. And I'm like, okay, and it's genetic, and you're not giving the family enough information that they could possibly safeguard the rest of their loved ones.
Mm-hmm. The rest of the family.
And I mean, we're not talking about, some crazy rare thing. We're talking about the number one killer in the United States, if not the world. Anyway, you keep that in your podcast.
We will.
Well, obviously, it's clear why you would continue to do this work, but I mean, let's be honest, it's a huge sacrifice to have a nonprofit and to do the work you do.
Interesting timing right now, because I'm really good at screening and I'm really good at saving lives, but I'm terrible at fundraising. I'm terrible at asking. I am terrible. And we have not been able to bounce back financially since the lockdowns. And I'm starting to lose a little sleep at night, a little stressed out, and it's really sad. My heart is, excuse the pun, heart is really heavy, because I think November marked my entry into 25 years. I've been doing this for 25 years. Okay. And as you know now, battling for my own life and my own health along the way, right? And I have screened nearly 60,000 individuals, and that has resulted in saving over 1,000 lives. I mean, that's just amazing. And it's a privilege, by the way, but I just wish it wasn't so hard. And the part that's hard is that we've never received the funding that we're so worthy of. And, I've stated more recently than not, because of a lot of things that are in the news these days with high profile cases and athletes and such. There's a lot of people that are willing to support the larger national organizations, right? And they do good work, but that means that those of us that are boots on the ground, small grassroots programs are being overlooked for the funding while we're still doing the work and not supported by the larger national organizations. You know what I mean? And so the sacrifice is that it is a tremendous amount of stress, because I have never let anything interfere or interrupt my community service work, not my own health, not lack of funding. I mean, I've never had the funding needed, but I've continued to screen. But now we're in a pretty fragile state. So I'm trying to figure that component out. You'd think I'd know that after 25 years, but truth be told, I'm usually just one person with a tremendous amount of support from volunteers and the staff that we use, as needed. But it is a lot to oversee and to coordinate and to implement. And so I feel very prideful in terms of us accomplishing my mission, serving my mission. I just suck at fundraising.
Fundraising is hard. It's really hard. And the thing is, because you'll have access to certain people, and then that well runs dry, and you have to get creative, and you have to find new places to go. And then the world changes, and what the world is receptive to, and what they're willing to do for others. And especially, I think COVID, sadly, the whole lockdown really changed everything. Like, that was not a good time for any health crisis other than COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so to bounce back from that, I think I mean, you are incredibly deserving of so much funding and support. And so hopefully people will get that awareness, and, being on here.
We're going to help with that.
Yeah, because that is the point. I mean, your story is harrowing. I mean, it really is. The fact that you are still here, you're clearly here for a reason. And thankfully, you're still here.
Yes.
I mean,
you're incredible.
Oh, thank you, ladies.
It is true. I've read stories about you, and I've always been so impressed by you. But I had no idea to the extent of what you've gone through. No idea whatsoever.
It's interesting because a couple, pretty close friends that I talk to regularly and that were around during that time read that article and made comments like, I didn't know it was that much. And I'm like, really? But it's been a lot of years and a long journey. But I say this often because I feel so blessed that right here in front of you, I'm such a happy person and I love my life, and I'm blessed that I don't struggle with some issues that many of my friends and loved ones struggle with. And so I remain super grateful, and I'm so thankful for my life. And I have thought that, I coined this phrase a long time ago that, often the gift of purpose comes through great adversity. And I read something some time ago or heard something that didn't matter from what walk of life you were from, that one of the number one goals that people have are to find their purpose, because their purpose isn't always their career or, I don't know, family. I don't have kids, so I can't really relate to that, but to find their purpose, whatever it is. And so I feel like, wow, I have found my purpose, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to always be serving that purpose. And that's a tremendous blessing. It is. And so I had to go through a lot along the way. But at the end of the day, here we are, and I'm happy, and I consider myself fairly healthy. And so I feel sharing my story via your fabulous podcast, you're going to reach people that are affected by all sorts of different health issues, right? And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a heart person. I read something on a cancer site, and this gal had put up this meme, and it said, survivor's guilt is real and it sucks, right? And a lot of people aren't familiar with that term. I am familiar with it, and I recognized it in me a long, long time ago. And I just made a little comment, even though it was a cancer site. And I said, in truth, it is absolutely real, but it's better than the alternative. And also, you can spin it and share your story of survival to give other people hope. And so I sort of like, ooh, should I be writing this on a cancer site? And then I thought, well, we're all in it together.
We are all in it together. Doesn't matter what the diagnosis or the traumatic event or any of it, it's all the same, like you said. And so many people have found their purpose through suffering,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it doesn't matter what we're surviving. It's all the same.
It's about the survival.
Yes. And I think the fact is, yes, you should be writing that on a cancer site too, because
Absolutely.
you never know the words that someone needs to hear,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you say something and you may think it's insignificant, but it can completely change someone's mindset,
Mm-hmm.
turn them around,
Yeah.
let them know that they can get through something.
Yeah, or they'll go to that one more appointment, and how many people that you can touch just by saying, no, but I did get the next surgery, or I did find the doctor that was going to help me or listen to me. And, one thing you can say can literally keep somebody here and change their life. And also your light and just your energy, I can just feel that confidence and that strength and that light and that joy and being in your purpose, even through everything you've been through, to come out the other side and to say, but I found my purpose and I'm happy in my life and I'm sitting here in gratitude, is just remarkable.
Oh.
Remarkable.
Cry. Now you're trying to make me cry.
I know, I'm getting overclamped.
I appreciate
it. Really is. Like, I hope you can really let that land, because it's huge.
I appreciate that acknowledgement very much. So thank you.
Yeah, it is. It's true. It's the whole reason that we wanted to do this, because there are so many people that feel alone, and
they can't tell people what they're going through. Like even your friend saying to you, wow, I read that article and I didn't even know, because we think people know. We're in it. You were in it. So you thought, well, they're here with me. They're supporting me. They're witnessing it. But there are pieces of your story that you probably naturally just kept sacred and kept to yourself because you were just trying to get through it.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
And you probably also, because you're trying to get through it, every single time you see a friend, you're not like, let's talk about my health crisis. It's like you want to escape, you want to be well, and you want to feel well, and you want to be with people, and you want to enjoy your life. And so you don't want every moment to be about something that you're suffering through.
Yeah.
So,
and pickleball. Let's talk about pickleball just for a second.
Okay.
I mean, who doesn't love pickleball? But, the fact that you went back and played tennis. So I just want to really touch on this, because this is also a really important thing for people to know. You got back up with everything you were going through. I mean, getting shocked on the tennis court, and then you got back up and you said, I'm going to live my life, even though I know that I still have another surgery, or the wires are being recalled or whatever. And you went back and you played tennis because it brought you joy. And you play pickleball, and okay, I can do 2 games, and then the next day I can do another 2 games. And so you are living your life. And I think that's also such an important, inspiring message to people that are going through any kind of health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
You're living your life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I am really grateful because I go stir crazy when I can't get a little competitive spirit out or move my body or be in the sunshine or out in the fresh air. But I mean, let's acknowledge there are a lot of people that aren't physically capable of doing it, and my heart would ache for them. But for me personally, I'm really grateful. And, I've made some tough decisions for myself. I know what potential consequences there could be,
Mm-hmm.
but I really, it sounds so cliche, but I really choose to live the life that I love. And I was really unhappy when I gave up tennis for that. I think it was like a year. And I didn't want to play pickleball because it sounded geriatric to me. I thought,
It's the coolest thing ever now. Everybody's like, if you're not playing pickleball,
I
and
have not played pickleball and I know I'm not cool.
I really love it. I love the sport, and I still face weird things on the court sometimes because people don't understand that I can't do anything in the heat. I can't exert myself in the heat, or that I suffer with migraines, or, how do you explain the device in my shoulder and I can only play 2 games? They think you're a wimp, or, whatever. I still deal with that a little bit because, not everyone knows my story on the pickleball court. A lot do. But, I just navigate through, and I don't think I deserve a medal for doing it because I love it and it brings a lot of happiness in my life. And so I just remain unbelievably grateful that I can, because I had a little knee injury over the last couple weeks and I didn't play because of that. And I was so sad and so miserable. So, I'm so grateful. So grateful. And, the other side, I mean, I do know a couple people, some ICD patients. That's what the device is called, by the way, an ICD, that they've had struggles sort of similar to mine that they never got any relief from, and that they're still dealing with it, pain. So it's not the suffering Olympics, because we each have our own journey and our own challenges, and somebody else suffering worse doesn't discount your experience and your journey. But, I feel really bad for those folks that didn't get the relief that I got. So, I remain grateful. I don't know how else to put it.
and just to speak to that, your deep sense of gratitude, has that helped your healing? Do you think that's helped your recovery or helped your life to have that perspective on your life, to be deeply grateful?
Certainly, in different capacities at different times, right? But I do think I am kind of a firm believer in a healthy mind, or a healthy point of view or attitude can really help you in your physical healing and just life, right? So I do feel that. I feel like, some of my recovery time, I was so drugged. I can't take credit for anything. But even through that, I mean, I had some pretty bad experiences with people not understanding that and getting worried that I was like a drug addict or something. And that was a hard struggle too. But I feel like my natural competitive nature serves me well in a lot of areas of my life. And I think just not wanting something to get the best of me or to knock me down and have me stay there, I think that sort of helped me, my drive, my fight. Just like the interesting thing that I briefly mentioned. Do you guys know that breathing machine that I'm talking about? When you have a surgery, I think particularly when it can affect your lungs, and you blow into that thing and you have to
I've
blow
had that.
up.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah.
pulmonary embolism and I had to
Oh,
do that thing where you breathe in the balls and
right.
they,
And you
yeah,
hate that
oh, I
thing.
hate it. It's
Yeah.
harder than you would think.
Yeah. And it's horrible. And so I remember asking my doctor, can I do anything else other than this machine? And they said, well, why don't you walk? And I said, okay, I live in Laguna. There's hills and stuff. They go, perfect. If you walk every day, a couple times a day, you don't need to be on that machine. So I remember a week later them calling to check on me, and they go, how many houses are you walking like up to 5 houses now. And I go, houses? What are you talking about? I'm walking like a mile while someone's walking my dog. And I was sick and I was in pain and I was drugged, but I just knew I needed to stay engaged in life somehow, right? Because I was spending such a tremendous amount of time in bed that I had to stay engaged in life. And so the walking served that purpose. And to your point, that helped my mental attitude as well. So I think, yeah, it's all intertwined and all another layer of like armor, if you will, to fight the battle. So yeah, you got to kind of have that fight and determination and tenacity, right? And I address most things in my life like that. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does.
So question,
Thank
when
you.
you were in bed, what did you watch?
Not myself. My girlfriends had to cover all the mirrors in my house so that I couldn't see myself because I was so freaked out about, I had those huge staples and stitches and ugh, it was horrible. I didn't look at myself. TV, it was weird, Jody, that you asked me that because I was like one of those crime, what do you call it? What's that term
True
when you
crime.
walk through crime?
Yeah.
Girls
Oh,
before
we're
my movie?
obsessed. True
No.
crime.
Yeah, but I mean, I was obsessed. I used to joke around and say, murder puts me to sleep. I watch it at nighttime. When I came up from the surgery, I didn't want to watch anything like that. Nothing. And so my whole taste in genre changed. I can't really remember off the top of my head, but I think I went for more comedic things, light, but to be truthful, I mean, I was so medicated most of the time. And I had a lot of visitors too, which was fantastic because I couldn't lay on my side or my stomach or anything like that. So, yeah, the TV was a friend, and my real friends were very entertaining as well.
And your dog. Yes.
Yeah. My dog's gone now, but she
Yeah.
was there with me through the whole thing. She was sick at the time too, but yeah. And that wasn't easy because she was an animal, aggressive, people fearful 120-pound Akita that not anyone could walk. So getting a dog walker wasn't easy.
But she was probably your emotional support animal.
So yeah, she was awesome.
We all need those.
Yeah.
So I think you've been fabulous. We just have a couple of fun questions if you want to answer.
Yes.
Is this going to be your sign off like the actor's studio?
Yes.
Yes. But they kind of are informative.
Mhm.
It's like sometimes the fun things. So have you ever done a cold plunge? Or would you if you haven't?
Oh, absolutely. I love the concept. I try to do it in the shower. I don't have a bathtub in my little place here, but yeah, I'm all about it. All about it.
Are you afraid of the dentist? And do you have any cavities?
I have no cavities. I'm not afraid of the dentist, although I don't go regularly and I haven't had dental work well, some aesthetic dental work, but not any dental work like a cavity filled or anything for a long time. So no, not afraid.
I know you play tennis. Did you play any sports growing up? And did you have any injuries from that stayed with you?
I played every sport growing up, but I wasn't allowed to play competitive sports because growing up, I was just considered a borderline case in terms of the heart disease in my family, but I couldn't pass the school physical and I wasn't allowed to play sports. Sometimes I worked out with the teams, I just didn't compete. And I played community organized sports before it was decided that I wasn't allowed to. But the fun ending to that is that that's why my parents were like, what are we going to do with her? I know, let's get her a horse. And that's how my equestrian career started.
Oh, I love that because I definitely remember your brother being a huge athlete.
Yeah,
I love
And
that
like,
too with the horse.
I know that's kind of amazing. Do you still ride horses?
I don't. Mm-mm. But I did for a very long time and I made my career and I was blessed there too. Traveled all over the world, going to horse shows, buying horses, importing, exporting. I had a really good time.
So that would have been your backup career.
Well, it was my career initially. We never knew it was a sport till after I already had the horses. And then, of course, it had to be the most expensive sport known to mankind. But I left the horses to start the heart screening effort. And what was really crazy is that in October, I got invited to a horse show series to go and screen the riders. And so that was like full circle for me. And I saw so many friends from my past and just being around the animals. And yeah, it was pretty surreal.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that too. This whole podcast is going to be like us just saying to you, Holly, I love that. I love you.
I know.
We love that. I love you so much.
Aww.
We launch our fan club tomorrow if someone else hasn't already started.
We're gonna get bags of money for you.
That would be fabulous. And then you could support Heartfelt.
Ooh, and yes. Oh, we're doing this. Yes, and then we're gonna support Heartfelt. We're gonna get you some cash and some following
because that would help me too.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Seriously, I'm so grateful that you spent this time with us.
Yes, and talking about gratitude, I am so grateful as well, and I'm so honored that you were so vulnerable and shared your story with us. That you're a remarkable woman, and the work that you're doing in the world with Heartfelt and your story is just inspiring and really just incredible.
Thank you both.
And we're happy you're here. And we are happy you are here with us.
I thank both of you. I thank you for the opportunity. It was fun.
Yes, it was fun. And we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you so much, you guys.
She's amazing.
I love her. What a story.
I really wish her dad was still here to see everything she's accomplished.
You know, he would be so proud. So proud.
Get your heart screened, everyone, and support Heartfelt. This episode was produced by Jody Paul and Tina Lynch, with emotional support provided by Ricky, Sabrina, Rocco, Oliver,
and Piper. Get yourselves a rescue animal, people. You won't be sorry.
You won't be sorry. Trust
Please
us.
do. Thank you for listening. We're so happy you're here and on this journey with us.
Yes. Thank you for being here.
See you next time on Oh Health No. If you have a question or comment for us or for Holly, please email us at contactus@ohhealthno.com, visit our website, ohhealthno.com, or DM us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube.
We'd love to hear from you. Please like, comment, follow, share, and subscribe. Meow bark.
Bark meow.
I love how you're like, no, we're barking first.
No, that was Piper saying that.
Sure it was.